Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Stand-Up. It's been a pretty busy week or two, so I'm hoping to stay consistent with the content, but we'll see. My in progress ticket I have here is the Rust add endpoint to get engine data. I think we reviewed this last time, but basically my thought around this was to um, add a REST API into my microservice system to basically allow me to fetch engine data from the Rust microservice. So that's kind of the gist of what I'm trying to do here. I put it at 8 points just due to the fact that one, I've never like truly built a REST API in Rust. I mean, I did like a tutorial one, but that doesn't really count for much beyond just the tutorial. So that's like one reason I estimate it so high. The second one is that I need to basically create the questions that I'm trying to solve with the API, right? Because APIs are really around, what question are they trying to solve? Like, are you trying to learn how many engines exceeded the temperature? Are you trying to learn what RPM does the engine need to be in order to maintain a consistent temperature, performance, whatever it is. So I just have to figure out the questions that I'm trying to answer and things like that. I also like to add probably an export endpoint that'll allow me to basically export all the engine data. And to do that, I have to obviously have some form of database that holds the data. So there's just a lot of questions around that I have to address. The main other thing, though, I wanted to go into on this one was that I had an idea, I want to say a few days ago, and I started to work on it a little bit. I have a rough kind of prototype that I'm not going to show you yet, but I'm real excited about it. I was working on it at night. If you don't know, I work on this stuff at night, just kind of when I have time. So I'm obviously a little limited by that, just this limited, I'm limited to time is basically what I'm getting at. But the prototype that I've been working on, I'm not going to go into it too much because I want to build it out a little bit before I start talking about it and showing it, just depending on where it goes. I'm just going to leave it at the fact that it uses. I don't want to disclose. It basically is going to use location data. I'm just going to leave it at that. So it's going to process location data and it's going to do stuff with that. But it's gonna be part of our engine system. I'm very out of all the features that we've added so far and have in our backlog to add, this one is number one by far. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've had this idea for a while now, but I haven't really had a good project to be able to incorporate it into, and I think I can do it in this one. So once I build it out a little bit, I'm going to show the rough prototype and show you where I'm at kind of, and then we're going to fully implement it in the system because, again, I'm trying to be super limited, but if I put it in this system, it's going to allow us to do pretty cool stuff. It's going to be really good. We're going to have a lot of content on it. I am going to show it to you once I have it up and kind of and working, but that might not be for a couple weeks at the earliest. But who knows? We'll see. I have a very rough prototype, but until I get the last second half done, I'm not going to show it. But anyway, so that's it. I'm not going to make a ticket for it yet because I'm trying to keep it I'm trying not to get too excited about it because it's kind of a bigger feature that I'm wanting to put in, but I'm very excited about it, so we'll see. But I kind of just want to skim through the done column just to see everything that we have done up to this point and just kind of get a feel for the amount of work it takes to do a system like this and the amount of planning and just kind of thinking, long term. So it really started with this architecture and design meeting where we kind of laid out what we want the system to be, how we generally want the flow of data to how that's going to happen. We did an architecture meeting video, so if you want to check that out, you can check that out. I lay out the current state of the system. So we've done that. I built the front end, at least have like a framework for the front end, and just a working shell that I can add into. Basically, is what I wanted to do there. We wired up the consumer, so we have real-time notifications with SignalR and RabbitMQ. We built our Rust microservice. Which I shouldn't underplay the building the Rust microservice. That was the first time I've used Rust. We got it to connect to RabbitMQ. That was a big goal we had. We got it to process the incoming engine data, and we got it to send a message back to another RabbitMQ queue, and then have that display in real time on the front end. That's super cool. I'm real excited about that feature because that's like a really practical way to handle a pretty practical problem. So I'm excited about the opportunity to like even possibly use Rust in like my professional career as a developer. That's like the ultimate goal is why I'm trying to use Rust. I'm trying to use it or learn it so I can use it like in my job. We did a prototyping on the back end. We researched architectures. We did some general load testing with JMeter, which that was a time. Let me tell you, that was, if you've ever used JMeter, it's just kind of like it can be kind of a discouraging application to use because you build this system and it's like you spam it with thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of messages every second, minute, hour, whatever it is. And then that's really when you figure out, does this thing work? Like, but we had mixed results. If you guys remember back in the one video, we were only getting 1,000 messages every minute. Obviously, because our architecture was only REST APIs at that point. We introduced queues. We got it up to 6,000 per minute. We still using REST APIs, but using queues. Then we went SignalR, and that's when we got 1 million in a minute and a half. But that's after we introduced Rust and had 2 RabbitMQ queues going. So load testing is an incredibly important step of any system. It really shows you, does this thing work? Do we have to change our design? Because I think it's okay to change your design. That's a good thing. It means that you're thinking about it, you're testing it, because you're never going to get the design right the first try. I mean, that's just not going to happen unless you've been doing this for several decades and you just know. I mean, load testing is a vital step for any system, and we're going to have more load testing in the future once I kind of build out more of the features. But this ticket was important because it really showed us where are we at in this project. So if you're interested in that, go check out the video. We did that fully in depth, and I show you all the numbers that we saw. We built the API gateway, but like I'm not using it yet, to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm going to introduce that back into the project. The reason why I wanted to create that is because I wanted to introduce rate limiting. So I added the API gateway using Oscillate API, API gateway, and then I set it up for rate limiting. But that was out of fear that I was going to overload the system with REST APIs. I don't know if we need rate limiting anymore. I might introduce it later on down the road because it's reintroducing an API gateway is literally just me changing the endpoint to be the API gateway, and then it just routes through that to where it normally would go. So it's not super hard to introduce that. It wouldn't be a lot of work. Oh, okay. These are our earliest tickets. So project planning, research, and prototyping backend data pipeline. Which this one, I have to check on that one there, because project planning, estimate. Okay. Why I was hesitating on the research backend data pipelines is because my initial construction of this was to use propagator blocks and to pass data that way. So, but that was like earliest implementation of this. Actually, I have to go back and look at the code. I forget where. To be honest with you, I forget what I even did with that code, because that was used for. Oh, this was months ago. I kind of forget. Yeah, this one represents more of just like trial and error of different things, and I wanted to experiment with propagator blocks. If you ever use those, they're pretty neat. They're a pretty neat bit of code you get with C#. Especially because you can chain methods, and the return just gets basically passed to the next block in the chain. But you can also encapsulate blocks in a propagator block. It's very neat code. But every time there's you get fancy with code, it becomes that much harder. Unfortunately, later on, as you're looking at the system, it takes you a second to remember the nuances with some bits of, I would say, less common C# code. Propagator blocks are more of a functional paradigm that have been brought into C#. They're really powerful and they work really, really well, but I don't know. I don't know if they're that common, because they really belong to a particular design style, and it would be kind of weird to introduce propagator blocks into just like a standard out of the box .NET API that just serves data back to the client. They're really for a particular use case. To be honest with you, I forget if we're still using those. So that's, I mean, we've done a lot. We've really, and I started this project before I even started this YouTube portion of the project, meaning like before I started tracking my work. So I had created the React project in the .NET web app before I started the Trello board. So there's like work that I haven't counted on here yet. The planning's a tough one because I still have to look into cache. I need some kind of authentication, but that's going to be way down in the future. Which adding auth into our project now, because we're routing through the .NET backend, shouldn't be that bad. Because our .NET backend is going to be the only like public backend, if you want to call it that, that's going to be accessible from the front end. So everything has to route, kind of more or less through that. So if we tag our controller with authorize and then we set it up to use like, either Java Web Tokens or cookies or some, OAuth 2 protocol, then we'll see. I don't know how relevant this prototype backend data pipeline design number 2 is. I don't know. I'm going to leave it though because I was thinking something, so I don't want to lose that thought. We have, just create API functions to call backend. I don't know. What is this one? Oh, okay. This is just like a design, more or less design thing. Well, we did that 11/24/2023. That's crazy that I've been working on this since last November. But yeah, so I mean, we've done a lot. I mean, yes, we have a ton of work to do, and especially the new feature that I'm introducing. I feel like I'm like low-key like still adding features and stuff to this, but that's kind of what this project is about because I love learning this stuff and working on it. And we'll see. I don't want to get I don't want to get too far into it, but there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be adding. So anyway, it's all this, every single one of these in the done column has a video on it if you're interested at all. I mean, we have our architecture meetings, we have our code, we have our demos, we have our prototyping. We have so much content on this, and it's only going to be continuing. So if there's anything in particular of the system that you want to see more in depth, if there's any testing, if there's any kind of load testing, any kind of like front end work, back end work, anything in Rust, RabbitMQ, and whatever you want to see, let me know. I can do whatever you want. Whatever kind of video you want to see on this. But yeah, so I'm going to be continuing adding the Rust endpoint, and then working on the other feature too. So yeah, anyway, that's all I got for today. So I'll see you on the next one.